Okay, now if you can bear with me for a minute, just while I'm having a little wander, I'll try and collect my thoughts. And as a lot of, bearing a lot on what the small video I made the other day concerning coincidence and programming and many other things. I will have to collect my thoughts. There is coincidence. Look at this little beauty. Coincidences and things, yeah? Now, a few years ago now, when the Big Bang Theory, the TV programme on E4 day after day after day, I was watching that, and the character Sheldon mentioned a book by Edwin A. Abbott. And it just so happened that recently to that, I'd been to Bromley Library for perhaps the first time in 10 years almost, and I had picked up the book Flatland by Edwin A. Abbott. Just a coincidence? I mentioned it to my friend at the time, and yeah, just said the same thing, coincidence. And then as I'm coming up to where I am now, this tree, quite physically, literally, as they're coming up to this tree, there's been a lot of talk recently about these things. You see them? So this is the park where I did my circle in the dark. And I walked straight past them, never noticed them. And look at them. Aren't they beauties? And a nice leaf on the top for scale. So is it these mushrooms things everywhere? You just don't look for them? Once again, I had it all sewn up in my brain earlier, and perhaps I'll walk for a second and zip it forward, even though my lady says she doesn't like it too much. Dustin seems to like it, and I will do one just for him. Coincidence. Also, my lady said something to me today which is fully in line with everything I want to speak about. It was those fateful French words, déjà vu. And it plays also with that glitch in the system, where the black cat crosses Neo's path twice. Now, as I've been watching Prisoner Cell Block H for the last couple of months, I keep noticing certain topics brought up, certain references to people made, that I've found increasingly in many such soap operas and TV dramas and sitcoms. And yeah, it's all part of that programming. For instance, within the past week watching Prisoner, in one episode there was a mention of cannabis and Rockefeller. Now you watch a TV program or a sitcom and you try and find me one that doesn't mention that name. So, where was I? Synchronicities, coincidence, programming, tattoos. Tattoos is another subject that keeps popping up in these TV programs. It seems to me that tattooing is quite old, goes back a long time, and yet last century someone has tried stuff on people, experiments if you will, or teaching one generation that something's okay, then ignoring the next generation and allowing them to form an opinion of their own, but then for the next generation to completely reverse the first opinion, i.e. tattoos are bad, now tattoos are good. And this goes in those stupid little cycles, doesn't it? It did so for the last 100 years at least. And it's a moot point. Tattoos are a personal expression, aren't they? Whether people think that, you know, they're brandings, gang affiliation, markings, that's just a personal expression, isn't it? I'm part of this gang. Good for you. Because your tattoo says so. It's not all about tattoos, but this is what brought it to mind and sort of picked it all together in some ways. These topics that keep popping up, drugs as well. I mean, in Prisoner Cell Block H, they talk about drugs, and they add cannabis into that, and you should see the way they portray cannabis smokers. I mean, it's just bizarre, it's just laughable, and yet I can't help but feel it was done intentionally. A generation above me, my mum included, and my aunts and stuff, fully against cannabis and drugs of all type. And I truly believe now that it's because of the programmes they watch. It wasn't because of the books they read, the doctors they spoke to, personal experiences they had themselves. It was Prisoner Cell Block H and Neighbours, Grange Hill. There should be a damn disclaimer. Perhaps there is and no one ever noticed. Perhaps there is and no one noticed. And truth in plain sight, as always. I asked my lady, she's getting into Prisoner at the moment, watching it with me. It was groundbreaking in its day for its adult topics. It's far out opinions on certain things. I asked my lady, do you know who's in more episodes than anyone else? No, she says. I said, have you even noticed her yet? Who are you talking about? She says. I said, did you see the Queen? She's in every episode at one point or another. Whether it's in the rec room, the governor's office, the dining hall, the library, whether they go to court. It's astonishing how many times the Queen pops up in Prisoner Cell Block H. Now, I know many of the people that will watch this first will be like, yeah, so obvious, yeah, we all know this. But yeah, many people do not. And thinking about these things has brought to mind something Jazz was saying about what we're all doing here. And another thing Jazz said about why. I think one of the reasons I'm making my videos is to try and explain why I now think as I do. And exploring these old TV programmes that I did not watch Prisoner when it first came out. I remember watching it a few times, staying at my auntie's house, staying up very late at night. It was exciting and it was a grown-up programme. It was brilliant. I only ever watched about 4 episodes and yet it made such an impression. But now as a grown-up, I've gone out and started watching it again, and I'm now almost on episode 400. I did the same thing for Grange Hill and first few episodes of neighbours and things. Just the subjects that keep popping up. While watching Grange Hill, they mentioned looking into the Coriolis effect, while at the same time in the flat earth area they was discussing the Coriolis effect. I can't help feeling that a lot of people are just discussing moot points. These topics that are not your own ideas but have been put into your brain to discuss endlessly for no reason. To get you nowhere, to take you around in circles. 14:12, I'll stop and come back.